sun. Hey there, what is going on, guys? Welcome back to another Star Wars Galaxy Heroes video. I'm Zuko.
And I'm Exum.
And this is The High Ground. Alright guys, so today we're going to be doing our own take on what is going on in this game in terms of ships. We all know the ships got a massive overhaul this past Friday, and a lot of, great content creators have come out with, extensive guides talking about the different ships and their new abilities and the factions.
Which ones are good and which ones are
exactly,
bad.
and which ones were nerfed, which ones were buffed. And it's been a little bit of a craze. People are kind of freaking out. Me especially, I hadn't dropped an arena in 3 months, and within 2 days I was down 35 spots. So it's pretty crazy. At least it's bringing some activity into ships. It's really cool to see. But we wanted to give you guys kind of our take on what's going on with ships, what we see the future of ships doing, and just a nice generalization. A lot of people, like I said earlier, have gone in depth. They've given you different, ships and stuff like that. So we're not going to beat a dead horse and talk about the exact same things because, it's a kit. It's a ship's kit. It's not going to change whether we say it or whether they say it. So let's get into this and let's talk about what's going on with ships. First of all, this whole new layout of the way the ships battles are done. Now you have 3 ships that are in the forefront, and then you have ships you bring in as reinforcements. And they now have, each ship has its own
reinforcement ability.
Exactly, its reinforcement ability. I know that there's a few ships that have some fantastic ones, such as Fives. Fives' reinforcement ability is actually fantastic. It comes in with a bunch of buffs, which is great to see.
Slave 1 does the same thing.
Slave 1 is one of the best ships right now. They kind of brought it back to the forefront. In doing so, they kind of killed some other ships like the TIE Reaper
and the TIE
Pilots and stuff like that. But that's a really cool thing to see, because now it brings a little bit more strategy into ships. Because before, all you really needed was a good capital ship. It was all about Thrawn, and it was all about, Tarkin. But now you have to have a little bit more strategy, because, yeah, you have 3 ships in the forefront, but who has the best reinforcement ability? Who, when you bring in as a reinforcement, is going to buff your team the most and bring the most bang into your lineup?
Also, another thing to look at now that they've made important is actually the factions.
Yes.
Before, you would look at the top of your arena and it would be all the same. It'd be the same mix of characters that were being used. But now, you want to play within the factions. They've made videos on how the Geonosians are good, on how the First Order is good. So now, it actually makes more diversity, because instead, you could only beat that top team before with the same top team.
Top team, exactly.
Now, you can beat, each other with different teams. So
kind of like what they're doing. It's kind of like what they're trying to bring in, what makes Squad Arena so much fun with characters into the game.
Making it diverse.
Exactly. You make it a little bit more diverse, because before it was the same, 6 ships all together, and you threw them out there and you attacked the other person, and you hope that your team was better than the others.
Yeah, you hope that your TIE pilot dodged more than
the other one. So they've done a great job. There's a lot of good ships now. Now you have the First Order has really come into forefront now. The Special Forces TIE fighter, the Kylo Ren's command shuttle, and his TIE silencer,
not slicer.
That goes on. They've actually formed a really good unity, and they're actually really good ships now together, which is great to see, because you want to see that. You want to see a faction-based team do really great together. It's the same thing with the Geonosians. Unfortunately, the Geonosian ships are now incredible, and I hate that. I'm not going to farm the Geonosians. I refuse. I do not care how good they are.
But that's on a biased
basis, yes. Some people love Geonosians. Yeah. But, whatever. In the new ships, they are an amazing faction. So, if you have... what's great is that a lot of people back who started this game 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago when it first came out, they had the Geonosians farmed up because they were really good at the beginning of the game, especially Geonosian Soldier.
He was a really good free-to-play character at the beginning.
Exactly, and he was great for the pit raid when it was kind of
was one of the best tanks.
Exactly. So it's, it's pretty cool that these guys now are they're bringing them back to the forefront for all those old characters. For us new guys, it's up to you if you want to farm them or not. I refuse to farm them. So one thing that we definitely wanted to talk about is when we looked at ships and we looked at the new rework that they did with ships, we feel like, yes, they did a fantastic job in trying to spice things up and bringing crystals in the top 50th squad arena, the fleet arena, which is great. But one thing that they're missing out on, in our opinion, is bringing in new ships.
Yeah.
Okay, because, yeah, you have all these ships and they're great. And, as characters are coming out, they're starting to introduce new ships and stuff like that, but there's so many ships from back in the day that they still haven't brought in that they should bring in.
Yeah.
The first ones that have come, into my mind since I started with ships was I couldn't really understand why Ahsoka and Plo Koon had their Jedi starfighters, yet Obi-Wan and Anakin don't, and theirs are seen in episode 3, and it's one of the most badass ship scenes in all the movies.
Oh yeah, it's an incredible opening scene.
Yeah, of episode 3 when they're flying out there, you know what I mean? He has to drag his ship across and knock off the droids.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really, really cool. It's a fantastic scene. Yet them two of the most iconic characters, they don't have their ships. It doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. So that was something that we were like,
and
yeah.
it's very similar models, too. It's not like anything crazy.
And it's the same name, Jedi Starfighter. It doesn't really change that much.
Anakin's Jedi Starfighter.
And you have R2, which is the droid on his ship. So it would have been really cool to mess around with that. And it's weird that they haven't brought that in from back in the day. Another ship that comes into mind, the Falcon. Guys, you're talking about the most iconic ship in all of Star Wars. And it is episode 4 through 6 Han Solo's Falcon. It's kind of ridiculous that they have, Rey's version of the Falcon. It's not even Rey's. Yeah. You can't even call it that. I still call it Chewie's because Chewie's still alive.
Yeah.
So it's now Chewie's Falcon. It's ridiculous that they have that one. The new Han Solo movie just came out. We wonder if we're going to get maybe a Falcon for that movie. But where? No, I want 4, 5, and 6 Falcon, man.
All. I want them all.
That's something that should have been introduced as well. There's a lot of ships that we feel that they've kind of missed out on. And as new characters are being introduced, their ship should come along with it.
Yeah.
Think about it. When Thrawn was introduced, how long did it take for us to get Thrawn's capital ship?
I think it came out the second time Thrawn came back.
The second time. Okay, so it came out about 2 to 3 months after Thrawn's initial release.
Yeah.
Okay, then let's talk about something. Let's talk about the fact that we got, The Last Jedi film, yet we haven't gotten... Let's first talk about Hux or Snoke. They're not in the game, which they should be in the game, but we're talking about ships. You're talking about two capital ships.
There's two opportunities there to bring in a capital ship, for, the First Order. A lot of the factions in the game are, there's not that many factions in the ships right now, but a couple of them are missing, a capital ship of their own.
Exactly.
Right now, there's only one Galactic Republic capital ship, one Rebel ship, and 2 Empire capital ships.
I agree.
So you're missing, Resistance capital ship, First Order capital ship, a Separatist capital ship. So you have opportunities there to spice up the game.
I mean, you have so much room for improvement in ships just based on expansion of ships. There's so much possibilities in ships. The same way we have, what is it now, 89 or something like that characters? No, 60-something characters I think we have in the game now.
I think it's more than that, but...
Yeah, well, whatever. We have an insane amount of characters. You could have an extensive roster and fleet. Let's just think about it this way. First Order and Resistance, they just came out. We've only had 2 movies on each of them. Just based on capital ships alone, there is 4 ships they could have introduced. Hux, Snoke, Leia, and Holdo. That's 4 capital ships that they could have introduced just based on those 2 factions alone. So why are they not really diverse enough?
Well, I expect them to be going that way, especially now they've made it a more faction-based game. I think, introducing these new characters, new ships is important, to spice up the game. Changing the dynamics of how ship arena works isn't really what's going to change it up, because you still have all the same ships that you were bored of before. Bringing in new character ships is going to be extremely important. I mean, how many characters do we get a month? We get like at least 1 character a month on average, maybe 2. Maybe bring a ship with them every time. It doesn't have to be the same person's ship. If you want to bring in Enfys Nest, like they brought her in the other day, and you want to bring in Anakin Starfighter, like I'm okay with that. I'm not going to be like, why is it?
Yeah, I don't think you need to have that. That symmetry. And I think what's really important to note is something that we alluded to earlier with this whole redoing of ships and everything like that, and the Geonosians coming into play. How about something maybe EA is trying to give us, or CG is trying to give us a little subtle hint, trying to say like, hey, look, we're bringing these guys to the forefront because we're going to introduce maybe a Separatist rework. And I know a lot of you guys are super excited for that. Some people like Nute Gunray for some reason. But that's another one that could have a capital ship. Then you're talking about one of the most sought-after characters in this game for a rework in General Grievous. Grievous as well has a capital ship.
And you even have an opportunity at someone who plays a pretty big role in the Clone Wars, Admiral Trench, if you know who that is.
Yes, Admiral Trench.
Admiral Trench has his own capital ship. He's very well respected. Yeah. He's very respected by the Jedis, because they know that he's a great admiral and tactician that they face in the field. You see him at the beginning, you see him towards the end. As he comes back, you think he's dead. no one is ever dead. But Admiral Trench, that's another opportunity at a Separatist capital ship if you didn't want to go with the Grievous, route.
But Grievous as well has a bomber as well. So if you didn't want to give him a capital ship, which would be ludicrous,
you could give him a bomber.
You could give him a bomber. Just something. I just think that maybe their reintroduction and bringing back to the forefront the Geonosians is maybe a little subtle hint at
what could be coming this summer.
Exactly, at a rework to the Separatists, which would be really, really cool because there's a lot of characters that you love from the Separatists that they could bring in.
Yeah.
So what's happening with ships right now is it's cool to see them bringing about some things. I'm really excited to see what they're going to do with the light side and dark side, the holo table, and how they're going to really go about that. Maybe they introduce new ships with that when they open it because it's still locked. We haven't seen it yet.
And that's what we'll be farming the ships.
Maybe you farm the ships through there, the new Falcon, maybe the Jedi Knight.
Instead of maybe releasing it through a marquee event, they release it like that.
Yeah, and that's another thing. Thank you for bringing up. Is that one thing that we think is going to be coming into this game sooner rather than later is legendary events regarding ships. Ships should be having their own legendary event. They should be having their own raid. They should be having their own marquee events. So those they do have their own marquee. I apologize. Yeah. But you're talking about, raids. You're talking about other stuff that they could bring in with ships. And what better reward for the first ever ship raid than the Falcon that we all have been dying for since the beginning of, ships.
Raid Han's a reward. So, you have
Falcon being the reward. That could be something that could be coming into the game really, really soon, in our opinions. And one thing that's super important to note with all of this going on is that if you have a legendary event, let's think about how legendary events are done with characters. Legendary events are done with characters based on either factions or, it's usually, they're all based on factions. You have Resistance, you have, Empire to get,
Palpatine,
Jesus. No, that's Rebels. You need Rebels to get Palpatine. You need Jedi to get Yoda. You need Resistance to get...
Who's Empire for? R2-D2, right? No.
R2-D2.
Yes,
R2-D2 is Empire, you see? Well, yeah, you need all these specific factions to get these specific characters. So wouldn't it make sense for you to need specific faction ships to get specific ships? So one thing that would be important, in our opinions, is expanding some of these ship factions.
To completing them.
Exactly, because there's only a few that have 6 ships to make up a faction.
Yeah.
So we need a couple more to be able to complete that. So if they do introduce legendary events for ships, to be able to even compete in them based on what we know from character legendary events.
Just guessing here.
Exactly, just throwing out some ideas to get you guys thinking. So it's important for them to do that. There's a lot of ships, there's a lot of potential for growth in ships, and that's something that we really want to bring into the forefront for you guys.
Yeah.
So with all these new ship abilities, with everything going on with ships, they finally introduced now the new ability materials for ships to help make them better, even though they nerfed the ships to make them now better with the materials. So yeah, guys, if you're flustered, if you're confused, if you're like, where do I go from here? What do I do next? Who do I farm? I was farming this guy. I was farming the TIE Advance, the Slave 1, and now I don't know what to do anymore. Do I farm the Geonosians? Guys, and in my opinion, I think you definitely rest assured, rest easy knowing that keep farming those guys. They're great characters in the game for the game as a whole. They offer a lot more than Geonosians do. Like I said, I'm going to reiterate, all those characters that I mentioned, Vader, Boba, those guys are fantastic in the rest of the game. So those are great decisions. And I know a lot of you guys are sitting there and you're like, Zuko, you're up here and you're telling us that to worry about right now, you guys are always talking about looking into the future and predicting the next meta. You're totally right. You're totally right. And we did mention earlier that we think with this new Geonosians coming into play, that maybe there's going to be a Separatist rework coming out. But in my opinion, my humble opinion, a Separatist rework will come with so much more than just the Geonosians. In my opinion, it's going to come with new droids, maybe droidicas, maybe B1 battle units. It's going to come with so much more than just the Geonosians. I don't think that the Geonosians will be a center point in that new Separatist team. So I don't think you need to worry in that regard that much on the Geonosians.
Yeah, just making Grievous better will already boost the Separatist
exactly.
team. So they don't really have to introduce that many new characters.
Exactly. So I don't think that that's really that important. And so that's my take for you guys that are, you're worried about that. You're worried about who do I farm next? What do I do next? Rest easy. Continue doing what you were doing before. Those ships are still great ships. Yes, the TIE Advance is a little bit nerfed, but it's still a great ship. And their characters are fantastic.
And now let me give you guys a different side. And it sucks that we're giving you all these sides, but it's important to get you guys thinking because, that's what we're here to do. And ultimately, it's your decision on how you want to approach the game. So, yes, there are great ships that are always going to continue to be important to the game because the characters that are their pilots are important to the game. so you should always farm those. There are the Geonosians that you can look at because very soon they should be getting a rework, and maybe they can get better. But also, like we say, do the long game. This is how you want to be ahead of the curve. Two ship factions that are going to continue to be important going forward, especially right now, is the First Order and the Resistance.
Yes.
I haven't seen a video on the Resistance on how they're doing right now, but I know I've seen a video on the First Order, and they're doing extremely well in the new ships 2.0.
There's not many ships for Resistance.
Exactly. So the ships 2.0 for the First Order, they're doing amazing, and you're going to continue to get new First Order and Resistance characters as these movies progress, because as you know, we still have Episode 9, and there's still characters that haven't been implemented. So that's the type of team you want to think about the long haul. You want to think about what teams or people in general don't have their stories done yet. But we could get a Supreme Leader Kylo capital ship next year or something like that. We could get Hux doing something else in the movie, and that requires a ship. You could get an introduction of a new character for the Resistance that requires a ship. So these are factions that have longevity right now, as opposed to the Geonosians, who maybe they would have already implemented all the Geonosians that are important.
Like, that's why I don't think they're important.
If you think about them, none of those Geonosians have names. So they're not that important, the characters. So just when you're farming these ships, keep in mind, you know, you can keep this First Order as a side project because they're like the long haul, but you could be farming currently, you know, those great characters that have good ships, or the Separatists and waiting for a rework. But just there's a lot of options you got to keep in mind, and we just want to give you those options.
Well, what I think is important to note is that remember that what I was stating is that when you're thinking about what ships to farm, and you're thinking about, I don't want you to think that the ships that were once good are now bad, so don't farm those and farm the Geonosians instead. That was kind of like a generalization. Kylo Ren Unmasked, his ship, the TIE Silencer, is an incredible ship. It always has been, even before this rework. Now it's a little bit better. His command shuttle was actually a very solid ship. It wasn't a bad ship. Now it's even better. So you're talking about, when you talk about the First Order, they're fantastic characters as well.
Because they can be great for the Sith
But
raid.
they're in the territory, their territory war, the territory battle, their Sith raid. They're fantastic characters. So there's never really, if you were sitting there and you're like, I don't know if I should farm them. No, but of course you should. That was never a question. That's, in my opinion, that goes back to what I was saying. Keep doing what you're doing. The First Order is a great faction. They will continue to get better. Their ships got boosted, but their characters are still fantastic characters. Each one of those characters for those ships, Kylo Ren Unmasked, Special Forces TIE Fighter, those are all fantastic characters for all parts of the game. So they fall into that group of characters that I was talking about earlier, that you should continue farming them because they offer you so much more in the rest of the game. Don't start farming ships for characters that don't offer you anything in the other parts of the game. That being primarily the ones that we have, thrown at you over and over is the Geonosians. They don't offer a lot in other parts of the game. The First Order always has. So keep going with your First Order farms if that's something you're farming. If you're farming Kylo Ren Unmasked, you're lucky. There's a great ship. His ship is in there as well.
It's a great node, yeah.
So keep doing what you're doing, guys. Don't be afraid of everything that's going on. It's a lot, but trust that what you're doing is the right way. Keep going. Those ships are still good ships. Some ships got better. Some ships got worse. They're still solid ships. Their characters are still amazing characters. Keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah. So yeah, thank you guys. That's today's video. Let's leave you guys off first with the question for today's video for a giveaway of one of the High Ground t-shirts for the thank you for the 500 subscribers.
Yes, sir.
Do you have your question for today, Mr. Zuko?
I do have my question for today. Who do you think, who would have won in a battle? Darth Vader or Darth Vader Dark Side Anakin version of Darth Vader?
The experienced one or like the potential?
The potential. The one who had all the potential in the world there on Mustafar until he got it all cut away.
Then that's an excellent question, Mr. Zuko. So, all right, you guys can answer that in the comment section below. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please follow us on Twitter so that we can interact with you guys. Thank you guys for watching. Please like and subscribe, and we'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.
It's over, Anakin. I have the high ground. You underestimate my power. Don't try it. High ground. You were supposed to destroy the Sith, not join them. High ground. I loved you. High ground. High ground. It's not the high ground way. I mean the Jedi way. You know what I'm saying. I'm saying I've beaten you, and I'm on the high ground, so. High ground.